Kyodo News English World。
皆さんこんにちは。こちらは共同通信英文記者のポッドキャストです。英文記者は国内外で起きている出来事について取材してオリジナルの英文記事を発信したり、日本語のニュースを英語に翻訳したりしています。共同通信の英語の記事をテーマに、いろんな国から集まる仲間たちと英語と日本語を交えていろいろディスカッションしていけたらと思っています。今日は3人の記者でお届けします。私は堀内純子と申します。共同通信には2009年に入社しました。2年間ほど松江支局で日本語の部署の記者もしていました。よろしくお願いします。
Hi there, everybody. My name is Eduardo Martinez, and I've been here at Kyodo News for about 2.5 years now. I'm originally from Brisbane, Australia. Thank you very much for being here today.
はい、山口祐希と申します。私は2021年に海外部に移動してきて、それまでは日本語の記者をしていました。主に経済分野の取材をしています。よろしくお願いいたします。
よろしくお願いします。今日はエドさんの記事の紹介です。日本にはパレスチナ人が80人ほど法務省の統計によるといるようですけれども、エドさんが最近取材した日本でのパレスチナ人の記事です。エドさん、見出しを読んでいただけますか？
はい。Palestinians in Japan raising voices in defense of their homeland。
日本にいるパレスチナ人が祖国のために声を上げているという記事です。では最初のところを読んでいただけますか？
はい。On an early spring morning in a suburban Tokyo park, Hanin Siam stands proudly in her tobe, the blooming cherry blossoms around her in stark contrast with the rich red embroidery of the traditional garment from her native Palestine. Siam moved to Japan with her family when she was 7 years old, amid a period of intense conflict in her birthplace of Gaza. I didn't know it wasn't normal until I left, she said, recalling how surprised she was to encounter a world not filled with troops, random airstrikes, the sound of drones, or checkpoints. For Siam, now 27, the Palestinian struggle against Israeli occupation is nothing new. But after the world turned its attention to Gaza following Hamas October 7's attacks last year, Siam gave up much of her ordinary life to dedicate herself to protesting for Palestinian liberation and participating in cultural events to educate others about her people and their history.
ありがとうございます。日本でパレスチナについてデモも行われたりしていると思うんですけれども、エドさんはどうしてこの記事を書かれることになったんでしょうか？
Yeah, so I think, like everyone else who's been watching the news recently, this has become a very major topic. And not just as a journalist, but I think as a human being, I think it was just, I found a lot of the images coming out of Gaza to be very confronting. So I was just very curious to know why is this happening? Why is such brutal fighting taking place in Israel and in Palestine? So I also noticed around the same time that a lot of people, I know personally here in Japan, were starting to take part in protests held here. And I know that, there have been protests happening all over the world, in support of Palestine. But what I found very interesting was that, I guess in general, people don't perceive Japanese people to be that politically involved in a lot of things. So it was interesting for me to see Japanese people taking part in these protests, but then also starting to see people saying who are Palestinians taking part in them as well. So I just became very curious and wanted to know, who these Palestinians are, how did they wind up in Japan, and what it is exactly that they are protesting for.
この記事を見て、こんなにそのパレスチナの出身といいますか、そのパレスチナに、ルーツを持つ方がその日本にいらっしゃるんだなと思う、すごい意外に思ったんですけれども、この方々はなんかそれぞれどういうようなその経緯で日本にいらっしゃっていることが多いんでしょうかね。
So they're all here for various different reasons actually. Hanin herself is from Gaza, and that is because of her family. She came with her family when she was very young. But then there are other Palestinians here who, well, I guess ethnically you can say they are Palestinian, but they were born outside of Palestine. A lot of what they are protesting about as well is, I guess, goes back to what they call the Nakba, which is what they refer to as the mass displacement from historic Palestine. So a lot of Palestinians were displaced from their homes to make way for the creation of Israel. Some of them moved to refugee camps in what is now presently Gaza and the West Bank, the two Palestinian territories, as well as refugee camps in other countries in the region, so Jordan, Lebanon, etc. So some of these people, like for example Hanin, she was born in Gaza, but the other two Palestinians mentioned in the article, Wiam, she was born in Jordan, and her grandparents came from Palestine. And Tatiana, she said her father was born in Kuwait, but he comes from Palestinian origins as well. So through these protests, apparently some of them didn't even know that there were many other Palestinians around them, but they've discovered each other because of this and realized that, they're all Palestinian as well.
面白いですね。
Yes.
結構日本人も参加してたということですけど、他にもなんか意外だなとか、興味深かったところとかありました？
Yeah, I guess what I find very interesting about this movement is, yes, it's relatively small compared to, the really massive protests you see in other parts of the world, in the Western world in particular, or in the Muslim world. But I think they're very sustained. Like it's not like they just have one event and then that's it, and they don't do anything for a few months. They are extremely active, holding different kinds of events throughout the week. Even you just have regular protests on the street, or they do cultural activities like sort of showcasing Palestinian history and Palestinian art. As we know, there have been a lot of student protests around the world as well at different university campuses. And there have been protests now starting here at Japanese universities as well, like Tokyo University and Waseda University. And so I guess I've concentrated on these four people in this article, but it's a collective of people, basically, of Palestinians and non-Palestinians, a lot of Japanese as well, who are kind of coordinating doing what they can to support the Palestinian cause.
結構広がりがあって、かつ継続的にもやってるということですね。
Yes, that's right.
中東地域っていうと、結構普段、日本で生活している人たちにとっては結構ともすると遠い国の出来事みたいに、捉えられがちだと思うんですけれども、こういった抗議をしている人たちっていうのは、そういう、日本の人たちに対してなんかどういうふうに変わってほしいであるとか、どういうふうに、ところを期待して、こういった抗議活動をされていらっしゃるんでしょうかね。
That's a good question, Yamaguchi-san. I think that, yes, they understand that, for the Palestinians here who were born outside of Japan, they understand that, they are foreigners here, and they are really trying to, often when it comes to protests and all the content that they make is often both in Japanese and English. So they are very aware that, they need to appeal to a Japanese audience as well. And like I mentioned before, there are a lot of Japanese organizers involved amongst them. I wish it was simply because of the word limit that I couldn't mention more about the Japanese side. I guess when it comes to this conflict, yes, you want to hear opinions from a lot of different people, but you don't really hear much from Palestinians themselves, which is why I decided to center them in this specific story. But there's a huge amount of involvement from Japanese people. So yeah, they are trying to make as much content as they can in Japanese. They are also sort of showing trying to tell everybody what they can do, what can be done from Japan. So they are just trying to, I don't know whether expose is the right word for it, but show the links that a lot of Japanese companies have to Israel, especially the ones that have to do with defense and weapons manufacturers, because these are, the places that are developing the weapons that are being used in Gaza right now. So they are really focusing their energy on trying to boycott or encourage these countries to divest or cut their ties with these kinds of Israeli firms, because, they don't want Japanese firms to be involved in weapons manufacturing when it comes to this assault on Gaza right now.
共同通信は日本の通信社なので、こういった国際ニュースをどういうふうに伝えればいいのかなって私もよく考えますけど、そういった日本に求めることとか、日本ならではのっていう視点が入ってると、なるほどなと思ったりします。
And like I said, there was a lot I wish I could have included in this article, especially more on the background that Japan has with the region. We have written stories on it before. Japan is very dependent on oil, crude oil from the Middle East. So it wants to maintain a healthy relationship with Middle Eastern countries, but while at the same time, the United States is Japan's biggest ally. Which of course the United States is Israel's biggest supporter at this point in time. So Japan finds itself in a very interesting stance where it can't really sort of make a big statement one way or the other. So that's of course the government's official stance on it, but a lot of people on the ground here are kind of sort of reacting simply to the humanitarian crisis that is happening right now.
いろんな方をその取材されたかと思うんですけども、エドさんがこの取材を通して一番印象的だったこととか、印象的だった言葉とかそのこととか考え方とかって何か発見ありましたか
？It's hard to say because several of them said such profound things, especially when it comes to Palestinians. I think, maybe perhaps when I spoke to Wiam, she said she found it exhausting that Palestinians were referred to as activists, and she said, we're not activists, it's just our home. And it's, it's not something that, in the last few weeks or the last couple of years that they've sort of decided to take up as a cause. It's very much part of their existence, their whole story. A lot of them grew up in a kind of statelessness, but yet they have, their elders, their grandparents and stuff telling them that this is their history. And so they don't want to forget that, and they don't want to, they want to keep continuing that legacy and tradition of resisting and fighting for their people, for their cause. So yes, that's what I think it took a while for me to sort of realize it that way as well. It's just something that is taking up their entire lives, basically.
ありがとうございました。そろそろ終わりの時間がやってきました。共同通信では共同ニュースプラスというサイトで日本や世界で起きた出来事について英語のニュースを発信しています。今日ご紹介した記事も掲載されていますので、ぜひチェックしてみてください。それでは皆さん、See you next time!